The Flannan Isles are nothing more than bare rock rising out of the sea 20 miles west of Scotland's Outer Hebrides. No trees, no shelter, no permanent residence, just cliffs, birds, and a lighthouse built to keep sailors alive in one of the harshest maritime regions on Earth. Locals believe the place was cursed long before the lighthouse existed. They called it the other place, a spot where strange lights moved at night and voices echoed across the wind. But three men were stationed there in December of 1900. James Ducat, the head keeper, Thomas Marshall, the first assistant, and Donald MacArthur, the second assistant. All experienced, all disciplined, all fully aware of the dangers of the sea. Their job was simple: keep the lantern lit, log the weather, survive the storms. By mid-December, the weather turned vicious. Waves slammed the cliffs like hammer blows. Winds howled day and night. The lighthouse shook. The mainland received no contact from the keepers, but that wasn't unusual during storms. It was only when the weather finally cleared that concern began to grow. Captain James Harvey of the vessel Hesperus set out on the 26th. As he approached the island, he saw the first sign something was wrong. The flagpole was bare. That flag was always raised when things were normal. It wasn't optional. It was protocol. He sent his second mate, Joseph Moore, ashore to investigate. Moore later said, the moment he stepped onto the island, he felt an eerie stillness. No seabird cries, no human noise, just the wind. When he reached the lighthouse, the front door stood unlocked. Inside, the clock on the wall had stopped. The kitchen was cold. A meal had been left unfinished. A chair lay on its side as though someone had stood up quickly. More concerning, 2 sets of oilskins were missing, raincoats the men always wore during storms. But the third coat remained hanging on its peg. That meant one of the men had left his post without proper clothing, something that experienced lighthouse keepers simply did not do. Moore checked the logbook next. The entries were disturbing. One described severe winds unlike anything the keepers had ever seen. Another said, Ducat is very quiet. MacArthur crying. A grown man with military experience. Crying. But here's the part that made the hairs on the back of Moore's neck stand up. The mainland recorded no storms anywhere near the island at the time those entries were written. The seas were rough, yes, but not catastrophic. So why were the keepers describing conditions that didn't match the official weather reports? The final log entry read, storm ended, sea calm, God is over all. After that, nothing. Several crew members spread out across the island searching for clues. On the western cliffs, they found damage to the storage platform. Iron railings were bent inward. A heavy supply crate was shattered. Thick ropes had been torn free as if snapped by incredible force. It looked like a massive wave had struck the area, one powerful enough to twist metal. The official investigation suggested that one keeper went out to check the damage during the storm, fell into the water, and the others died trying to rescue him. But that doesn't explain the missing coat, or the stopped clock, or the log entries that described the storm no one else saw. And there are deeper mysteries. If a giant wave swept the men into the sea, their bodies, or at least fragments of equipment, should have washed up somewhere. They never did. Not once. Not anywhere along the vast coastline. No tools, no boots, no clothing. Nothing. Even stranger, the island should have been littered with debris if such a wave had struck. Ropes, crates, broken barrels. But the island was unusually clean. Nothing about the site matched the wave theory. Locals offered different explanations. Some believed the men were lured to the cliffs by strange lights. Others claimed to have seen circling the island at night. lights so bright they cut through fog like lanterns in the sky. Fishermen whispered about a black shape hovering over the lighthouse during the very days the men disappeared. A few villagers swore they heard shouting from the island days after the disappearance, long before investigators arrived. Voices carried by the wind even though no one was there. And then there were more unsettling accounts. In 1955, a temporary keeper assigned to Flannan reported waking in the middle of the night to the sound of 3 men whispering just outside the lighthouse door, calling for help. When he opened it, nothing stood on the cliff but darkness and sea spray. These were brushed off as superstition, but the Flannan Isles have a long history of strange stories, tales of ancient spirits, strange figures walking the cliffs, and disappearances dating back centuries. To the people who lived along that coast, the island was a place you avoided unless duty forced you there. So, what really happened? Some historians suggest psychological breakdown, isolation, storms, fear. Maybe the men turned on each other, but forensic examination of the site found no sign of a struggle. No blood, no damaged furniture, nothing violent. Another theory involves a rare but possible phenomenon. Rogue waves, sudden walls of water that can strike without warning. These waves can reach over 100 feet high, tall enough to sweep a man off a cliff. But again, there should have been debris. And why would all 3 men be outside at the same time, violating strict lighthouse rules? The strangest theory is the one investigators never wrote in official reports but spoke of quietly, that the men were drawn outside by something they saw. A light, a sound, a presence, something that made them forget protocol, something powerful enough to pull 3 trained keepers away from safety. We'll never know what the final moments look like. 3 men, a storm, or something masquerading as one, a chaotic struggle against nature, or something far stranger. All we have is an unlocked door, a cold hearth, a fallen chair, and a final log entry. God is over all. More than a century later, the lighthouse still stands, automated now, empty. But visitors sometimes report strange sensations, like being watched from the cliffs or hearing footsteps echoing across the stone walkway when the island is supposedly deserted. Whatever happened to James Ducat, Thomas Marshall, and Donald MacArthur remains one of the sea's darkest secrets. The ocean has a way of swallowing the truth, and on that lonely rock in the North Atlantic, the truth may have swallowed the men themselves. Perhaps it was a storm, perhaps an accident, or perhaps the Flannan Isles claimed them the same way it has claimed countless others, with whispers on the wind, shadows on the cliffs, and mysteries no living soul can untangle. One thing is certain, wherever those men went, they did not go alone, and the Flannan Isles have never given them back.